Karl Marx, along with the hungry hordes of millions who followed upon his genocidally merry way, displayed a multitude of fundamental flaws in judgment when positing his dictatorial ideology. But that which stands atop the apex of his heaping pile of garbage was his misapprehension of essential human nature. Marxism assumes that not only can humanity be honed and shaped into the socialist new man, altruistically putting aside his own interests and working for the betterment of his community, but that altruism, i.e. selflessness, was even possible. Mankind is essentially motivated by self-interest and is highly susceptible to covetousness, greed, and corruption. Whereas self-interest is involved, we are not an isolated case study. The entire animal kingdom operates through the interest of self. Not only is altruism unnatural, it is absolutely impossible. Nothing that any animal, up to and including human beings, has ever done, is now doing, or ever will do, is motivated by selflessness. Let me provide an extreme example. Imagine a mother in a starving third world nation, watching her child die through deprivation, who is suddenly given enough food to either keep herself or her child alive. Obviously, most mothers would not hesitate to satisfy her child's needs over her own, but this would not be a selfless act. For nearly any parent, the spiritual agony of watching their child suffer outweighs the physical suffering they experience themselves. The mother would prefer, would have her self-interest satisfied by ensuring her child lives for another day. She values her child's life more than her own. There are obviously many shades of self-interest, from outright greed to acts that approximate altruism, but no choice or behavior actually achieves the latter. The Marxist utopia is therefore impossible. It is quite telling that the word utopia was coined by Thomas More in the 16th century from the classical Greek word utopos, which translates literally to no place or nowhere. Even from the very moment of inception, any utopian society will be a dystopian nightmare for certain demographics. And on a long enough timeline, it becomes dystopia for all. Civilization can be described as the lengths to which humanity will go in denying the essential reality that we are animals. And as animals, we are hardwired to suffer, struggle, and overcome. Do you really believe that a pack of wild wolves ever experiences depression, anxiety, or anything but the immediate stresses of extended hunger? Or are those wolves too immersed in tracking, in the hunt, to even have time for such inanities? The only wolf that will suffer anxiety, depression, and long-term stress is the one at the zoo. Captured, caged behind walls of glass and unable to satisfy his most basic instincts. That's humanity today. The slump-shouldered, slack-fisted gorilla caught and no longer even daring to imagine freedom. Imagine how much worse the impact would be in Marx's perfect communist society. When we have no barriers to surmount, no obstacles to overcome, and no suffering at all, every day becomes more drab than the one before. We would end up tearing society apart with our bare hands. The lack of historic catastrophes like the Great Depression and World War II across the last 3 or 4 generations has paved the way for the woke devourers, precisely because, in the absence of suffering and strife, humanity will create problems for the sake of doing it. This is Marx's fatal error. He misunderstood the fundamental essence of human nature and the power of instinct. This is why Marxist nations perpetually, and in very short order, evolve into authoritarian regimes. To live as his so-called new man is to defy the very feature that motivates us, self-interest. To get the proletariat to comply with the collective's mandates, force becomes necessary to ensure they resist the hardwired impulse towards self-interest in laboring for their own accumulation of wealth, and comply with the self-interest of avoiding torturous interrogations, forced confessions, show trials, struggle sessions, the gulag labor camp, or the mass grave. We've all been told that money is the root of all evil. I disagree. The root of all evil is control. Power is the manifestation of control, and force is the tool implemented by power. It follows that Marxist ideology, only possible through control, power, and the application of force, is inherently evil to the core. Leftist ideologues constantly argue that real Marxism has never existed, that the countless who tried it and ultimately failed did so incorrectly, as if they are in any way different from Stalin and Mao, the mass murderers from whom their ideals descend. Wrong. When practicing the experimental sciences, there is a theory, and there is the reality unveiled through experimentation. We can theorize that a hammer will fall upwards, but the experiment proves the reality when the hammer is dropped. The same is true for the odious ideals of Marxism. When the social experiment is performed, the realities of repression, famine, and genocide are revealed. The only true Marxism is that which has been implemented. The only true Marxism is that of Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, and Kim Jong-il. These are the true desires of the leftist lunatics. An evil totalitarian administrative state, the death of human nature, repression of individual choice, starvation, and death. This is what they are asking for. It's time we, who are sane, demand something better with louder voices. And then again, what do I know? I'm just some punk who cares.